In this video, we'll be going over some multiple choice questions about DNA and RNA, specifically the structure of DNA and RNA. So what I'll do is basically I have 4 multiple choice questions, and you can see here this is number 8 already, but this is just because I screenshotted it from the real IB exams. So this happened to be question 8 on the real exam, so don't worry about these numbers. They're just there because that's where they're from in the real exam. So let's go over them. I'm going to try and explain them as good as I can, but before you do this, before you do this with me, make sure to check out the videos that I made on the structure of DNA and RNA. I made 2 videos separately, and then a summary of both of them. So check those out before we do this. Okay, so first multiple choice question. So what you want to do when you approach a multiple choice question is before looking at the question, first look at before looking at the options. As you can see here, I hid the options because I believe that if you start looking at the options, you don't truly focus on what the question is asking, and you're just trying to find what you recognize. So what I recommend you do is you just only look at what information they're giving you, and then get familiar with the question, and then go to the actual question itself. Okay, the actual options themselves. So this question is asking which molecules from the nucleotide marked form the nucleotide marked in this diagram. So first, what you do now is look at this diagram and understand what's actually going on. So in this diagram, what's going on is you can see these the squares surrounding the nucleotide as it's showing here, and you can see there are many of them below each other and many of them here above each other. You can see this side is the pentagon is facing downwards, whereas this side is facing upwards, right? And this makes sense because if you watch my videos, you'll know that the DNA strands, so this is one strand on this side and this is another strand, they are anti-parallel, which means one strand will run down and one strand will run up, and that's just how it works. Okay, you can see here these are some. First of all, this is a sugar, the pentose. This is the deoxyribose sugar, and this little circle here is the phosphate, and then this we know is like the alphabet letters of DNA. So like in DNA you call them bases. These are bases. Each base, there are different bases, 4 different bases: A, T, C, and G. A always combines with T with a double bond, a double hydrogen bond. C always combines with G with a triple bond. See, for example, in this question, you'll never see G going with A or T going with C. It's always A with T, C with G, with hydrogen bonds. These dotted structures here are showing hydrogen bonds, which connect the nucleotides from each other on different strands. Okay, this right here, the 5' end and the 3' end, or the 3' end and 5' end, doesn't really matter. Just the 5' end. Remember, if this is the 5' end, it always faces to the phosphate group. So for example, this one is running upwards towards the 5' end because the phosphate group is facing upwards. So you can see here it's running downwards, so the 5' end is downwards. But don't worry about these informations, they don't matter too much. So now that you've looked at the question and really get what's going on, let's see what they want us, specifically what options they're giving us. So there's A, B, C, and D, right? And they're asking for which molecules from this nucleotide form the nucleotide mark in this diagram. So we know this is the nucleotide. Which molecules form it? We know this right here is a part of it, and that's a base, right? That's a base. We know this is the sugar and this is the phosphate. So those 3 things. Let's go to A. So phosphate, yes, a phosphate is one. A deoxyribose, yes, that's true. And a nitrogenous base. So far this one seems to be the correct one because if we know there's a phosphate group, that's a circular one. Deoxyribose, this is the same. Deoxyribose is the type of sugar in DNA. So this is a sugar, and we know it's DNA because DNA is double-stranded. Remember, RNA will be single-stranded, so it won't be bonded to another layer. It will be alone. So we know it's a DNA, and that's why we know that it's a deoxyribose sugar. Because if this was RNA, the structure, then the deoxyribose would be incorrect. You'd have to say ribose. Okay, and then lastly, nitrogenous base. we know this is a base. And yeah, they don't get confused with the nitrogenous. All that means is just that's another way of naming this kind of base. It's a nitrogenous base, all of them, nitrogenous bases. C, let's see. So A is definitely correct, but what you want to do now is sort of confirm that the other ones are wrong. But make sure, if you won't understand my explanations that well if you haven't watched my videos. So make sure really to check them out, because I'm only going over briefly the explanations. I'm not going into detail. So B here will be phosphorus. There is a phosphorus. Ribose. So ribose is a sugar, like I said. This could be a sugar, but ribose is the sugar for RNA. Remember, RNA stands for ribonucleic acid. Ribose sugar. Whereas DNA stands for deoxyribose nucleic acid. So we know this won't be ribose because it's DNA structure. So it can't be B for that reason. C, phosphorus, yes, that's correct. Deoxyribose, yeah, we know that's correct. But guanosine, that doesn't exist. That's a made-up word. If they gave this specific base's name, it'd be guanine, like this. Guanine, but not guanosine. Guanosine doesn't exist. Okay, D, phosphate, we know is correct. Ribose, again, that's not correct. That's for DNA. But guanine is correct, but ribose is not correct. Okay, so then for this one, it would be A. So now make another video that will go on to the next multiple choice question. Make sure to check those out.